Well, the latest is that Labour has won back the Police and Crime Commissioner role in Lancashire. Clive Grunshaw is the Labour candidate. He previously held the role from when it was created in 2012 until 2021. He won 135-odd thousand votes. Labour has taken Nuneaton and Bedworth Council from the Conservatives as well. We'll keep you up to date on all of that. But I want to talk about something slightly different now. This is the Rwanda plan and the fact that the Irish state and government is pretty annoyed because a lot of migrants, they say, are coming to the Irish Republic through Northern Ireland. There's a thing called the Common Travel Area, which means that if you travel between the United Kingdom, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, to Ireland, the state of Ireland, you actually don't need a passport. So a lot of these people are doing this, and the Irish government very annoyed about this. Today, front page of the Daily Telegraph, it seems that Rishi Sunak and his number 10 operation have raised a bit of an eyebrow at this and said that Ireland is welcome to join the Rwanda plan if it wants. Now, I think that's probably a legal impossibility given that it's in the EU, but I wanted some reaction for this, and no better person than Maria Cahill, who's a former Irish politician. She's also a columnist for the Sunday Independent, who always has a slightly better and different view than many other people to what's going on in Ireland. Maria, do you think this is just high-level trolling from Rishi Sunak, or will there be some in Ireland who say, well, actually, maybe this isn't a bad idea?
I think it is exactly satire, and actually I think the Irish Taoiseach, has Simon Harris, described it about 4 hours ago as more satire than news. It's not a serious proposal from Rishi Sunak. I think this is a little bit of, well, you say trolling, I think others might say a bit of chest beating over this issue, to try and deflect from the fact that they are having a bit of a disastrous performance so far in relation to the local elections. But, you know, there are people in Ireland who will agree with Rishi Sunak. There has been a rising element of toxicity around the immigration or migration issue over the last number of months. That may be because Ireland has taken in over 100,000 people coming from Ukraine. It has another 30,000 asylum seeker applications sitting. Just in the last week, the Irish Justice Minister, Helen McEntee, said that 80% of people presenting to the IPO, which is the International Protection Office, are coming via the Northern Irish border. So there is an issue there, certainly, but there also was, crucially, an unpublished memorandum of understanding between Britain and Ireland from 2020. And this is what the Irish government are heavily relying on when they're saying that they need to send those people back to Britain, people who have already been in the system. What the British government are doing are reneging on that particular agreement. They're saying it wasn't published, and therefore it isn't a legitimate argument for the Irish to have. And this is why Rishi Sunak is quite tongue-in-cheek, I think, saying that Ireland can join the Rwanda scheme. I don't think it's a serious proposal.
Maria, how is Ireland actually dealing with what is clearly a problem with migration? Because for a lot of time, when there was the Celtic Tiger in the late 2000s, immigrants flocked to Ireland, changed the whole fabric of that country. It's gone through huge societal change. But it's really in the last 2 years, you have people out on the streets, people who are annoyed about this, people who are making all sorts of allegations about what migrants have done or not done, problems with housing and so on. I just wonder whether Ireland is having a bit of a reckoning when it comes to migration in a way that perhaps it hasn't before. What's your impression of that?
Well, I've written about this issue repeatedly in the Sunday Independent. I think it swings. Certainly there is, as I said, a rising element of toxicity. There's also a rising level of anger and disenfranchisement. But there's a huge element of racism, I think, across the board. And there's also a huge issue with migration. So there are a number of different factors there for countries all over the world. You know, it's not just an Irish issue. I mean, I wrote about a little village in Donegal, which is called Duherry, which has taken in quite a lot of Ukrainian families, for example. With very little government help, it has to be said. They created a community garden. They have a vegetable garden. The children have integrated in the local school. They're bilingual. They are trilingual, actually. They speak Ukrainian, Irish and English. That has been a really successful model for local people. And those people have really added to the rural sentiment in Ireland. They've also contributed massively, actually, to the economy, those who have now come in to make it their home. So, you know, I think there is a positive element of it also. There is an enrichment of culture, of course, but there also is a difficulty, and we have seen over the last month a huge problem with tents, and it's actually being called Tent Village, round about Dublin and the Keys, where people just couldn't find a bed for the night, had travelled in seeking either asylum or international protection, don't have anywhere to go, and therefore were living in tents. That's a big eyesore for the Irish government, and it's also a huge difficulty because it allows people then to monopolise the argument to say that they're doing nothing. That's not the case. You know, it's almost impossible in a very short period of time to deal with 130,000 people who are all needing a home when you already have a housing shortage and crisis.
Is Ireland overwhelmed in terms of housing, do you think?
Oh, I think it is. I think it's had a housing issue. You know, everyone will recognise that. But also it has provided an opportunity for politicians like Rishi Sunak, for other politicians who would be slightly to the right, to create a bit of difficulty around this and to also poke Ireland in the eye, if you like. And also Sinn Féin, for example, too. You know, we do have a common travel area in Ireland. It's existed from essentially 1922.
And was codified in the Brexit agreement as well, at the Irish government's insistence.
Absolutely, but the reason for that was it had worked quite well. It doesn't apply actually to migrants. It applies to people who are legally in both countries and also the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man. What it does, just for anyone that doesn't know, is it allows people to move freely and to work freely within those areas. When England or when Britain decided to leave as a result of Brexit, it put that area under threat, and the Irish government sought to protect that. Now, what we need to do is protect it going forward. I don't think anybody in the British government really seriously wants that common travel area to collapse, given the fact that it has already cut its ties with the EU. You only have to look at the huge passport queues in our airports to find that ordinary Britons are a bit fed up with the Brexit that they landed with. They certainly do not want this becoming an issue in relation to Ireland also, and equally Irish people who have gone to Britain, you know, for centuries to make it their home do not want it to become an issue. So Simon Harris today has urged calm across the board. I think that's pretty responsible, given that we have had a lot of chest beating this week from both sides of the issue. It probably needs to be brought down, and not just in relation to the Sinn Féin issue. There is an argument now in relation to their stance on open borders. Mary Lou McDonald told RTE in September 2022, and I just want to quote this correctly, quote, "You can't limit numbers when people are seeking asylum and fleeing for their lives." So that was in September 2022.
This is the president of Sinn Féin. This is Mary Lou McDonald, possibly the next Taoiseach, depending on what happens. And what's she saying now, Maria?
So what Sinn Féin are saying now is that they're not in favour of open borders, and that has allowed people also to cause a bit of political mischief, because they're saying they're flip-flopping on the issue, that the open border was protected as a result of the Brexit negotiations, and now ironically we have Irish Republicans who aren't in favour on it when it comes to this particular issue. That's about votes, Peter, and that will give you a bit of an indication as to how important this issue will be in the run-up to an Irish election. That election has to be held by March 2025. The elections across the water in Britain have to be held, I think, by January 2025.
Yeah, that's right. So possibly both this year. I just find it astonishing, Maria, that Sinn Féin may say one thing and do something else. I mean, I've never come across it before, apart from all the time. Maria, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. Maria Cahill there, former Irish politician, columnist for the Sunday Independent.